Good morning. We have got a quorum, and it's also the appointed time. Let's get started. First item, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on of the last meeting held on the 28th of October. Any proposed amendment? No, thank you. So minutes confirmed. Information paper issued since the last meeting. You have received a number of papers. The next meeting, we are going to have a meeting on the 10th of December at 4:30 because of the item for discussion. We are going to have two items only, and that is the 2014 electricity tariff reviewed, and also the development plans of the two power companies, as well as creation of directorate posts for the Environment Bureau. Another meeting will be held on the 16th of December at 10:45. We are going to discuss three items. And that is a proposed establishment of a maritime and aviation training fund, replacement of 4 patrol launches for harbor patrol services, and competition amendment ordinance or amendment bill. Some of the items on the list of outstanding items are now overtaken by events, and but of course the remaining items are still making up a very long list. All right. If there's no further comment, we can move on to the next item, and that is in relation to the Llama Island collision. We are going to have an update on follow-up actions arising from the report of the Commission of Inquiry. So for this item, I'm going to allot the period from 10:45 to 11:10. So let's wrap this up by 11:15. Members, please also note that a number of submissions and papers have been tabled, and something also from the government has been tabled for members' reference. They are just made available. Good morning, Secretary. Over to you for an introduction. On the 30th of April, the government released the Commission of Inquiry's report into the collision of vessels near Llama Island. We attach importance to the report and also the COI's criticism and observations concerning the regulation of marine safety. A number of action and measures have been taken, and then we also make the reports on a number of occasions, including myself attending the meeting on the 27th of May. And this time we're going to report progress in 3 areas. First, marine safety improvement, structural issues of the Marine Department, and also the internal investigation of the Marine Department. First, improvement measures proposed for safety. Passenger safety is the first priority for the government, and therefore after the collision incident, the Marine Department had looked into the life-saving equipment on board ferries, launches, and other boats, and also they have reviewed the internal monitoring mechanism. At the same time, our overseas experts, Lloyd's register, that is, to independently assess the plan approval process and monitoring process. And Andrew Moore and Associates Limited, another independent body, was involved in a benchmark survey comparing Hong Kong with Singapore, Southampton Port of UK, and Sydney Port of Australia in respect of their safety requirements. The 2 expert reports were completed in May and June respectively this year, and the Marine Department is looking into and following up with a an in-depth study, and there was a detailed report in the July paper submitted to this panel. To enhance the overall safety of maritime transport, we have come up with short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures. In the past months, the Marine Department have been liaising closely with the sector. More than 20 meetings were convened. On the 23rd of October, at a local vessel consultation meeting, 5 measures have been agreed to be implemented. For example, the indication of the life jacket locations and other measures regarding to signage and minimum safety number of crew. And these will not require legislative amendments. At the end of this year, they will be gazetted by way of changing the code of practice, and they will be implemented 1 year after gazettal. And vessels will be required to install AIS, automatic identification system, and radar and very high frequency radar, VHF, and also the requirement of providing child life jacket for every child on board. We know that some of the measures may increase the operational pressure on vessel operators, so the Marine Department would liaise with them closely and monitor any issues related to the implementation. If necessary, we are prepared to offer assistance to the industry. We understand there is a lack of sufficient manpower, and incumbent employees also need the training. So they are going to make use of various means to help the trade to train up more people, including this by setting up a dedicated fund. And we also agree with the CFI report that there's a need to have an overall revamp of the Marine Department. The steering committee, chaired by myself, was set up in May. 7 meetings have been convened to follow up the COI report and also the recommendations by the export reports. We're now focusing on the mode of operation of the MD and also enhancement to the operational measures. And we also look at institutional matters such as recruitment and supervision of staff. The steering committee has also invited the EU efficiency units to conduct a study. The first day has commenced, covering the monitoring and licensing of local vessels. And the next stage, we'll be looking at internal and external communication as well as transparency of information so as to come up with improvement measures. And then the EU will proceed to look at other regulatory work of the Marine Department. And the EU would also be looking at the steering committee would be looking at the long-term and acute shortage of marine officers and surveyor of ships, because it has affected the operation of the department seriously. So after the review, it has been recommended that the entry requirements be enhanced and training for new entrants be stepped up so as to deal with the problem in the long term. And also under the permanent secretary, an independent survey has been conducted to look into the way and the problems associated with the way Marine Department officers conducted their duties, including directional duties and misconduct. And since the establishment of the investigation group in June, we have checked the files and we have interviewed and obtained information from relevant officers. The number of officers who are involved in the investigation have exceeded the 23 previously invited. And that is to say, since 1990, all officers who had been involved in the dealing with Lama 4, including incumbent and retirees. There are non-directorate officers and non-directorate officers. In the internal investigation, if there is anything criminal in nature, the matter will be referred to law enforcement agencies for treatment, and we will not wait until the entire internal investigation has been completed. If through internal investigation there is evidence that some officers in the past are guilty of mismanagement, misconduct, or dereliction of duty, then irrespective of the rank of the office concerned, we are going to take disciplinary action in accordance with the established mechanism. According to the existing progress, we expect the investigation team will be able to submit a report to me in the first quarter of next year. I know the families of the victims would like me to publish the report, but because the reports may entail the civil service disciplinary action, we will not be able to make the reports open as such, but we would announce the results without compromising any possible disciplinary action as soon as possible.
Members, now, as I had said early in the morning, we have arranged a special session because the government has given us quite a few papers to discuss, but we are not given a lot of time, and we do have a very full agenda, and 6 members have indicated they wanted to speak. Now, do we have more than the 6 that I just named? Now, I will try my best to see if we can handle 3 items. I have indicated that already because I feel that we are handling important questions and more important ones coming along as well. So 4 minutes. Now, Mr. Chairman, now, having heard the Secretary, it seems to me that the Marine Department is not really doing its job well. And they have had a rather long history of not working hard enough. And this Lama tragedy has gone to show how many loopholes there are in the department. I have 2 questions. Now, for this department with so many weaknesses, now you have suggested the first stage of improvements. Some will be gazetted and then implemented without resorting to legislation. Some will be done in the first quarter next year, but others will only be done late next year. Now, I'm asking a very simple question. When can we have life vests for children? This is something the public is very much concerned about. When can they be made available? Now, secondly, for your internal investigation, if you discover anyone guilty of criminal offense, they will be handed over for disciplinary action. Can I ask whether, at this particular point in time, has anybody been found guilty? 2 questions. Life vests for children. Now, as I said in my opening remarks, we are holding discussions, and it involves whether suitable life vests can be found available, and I'll defer to my colleague later on. Now, for internal investigation, if we discover anything which may have a criminal nature, we will hand them over to the law enforcement agencies. It is not appropriate for me now to say whether such cases have been identified, because the enforcement agencies have their own policies or procedures to follow. Life vests, anyone? It looks like a pretty simple, straightforward question. Now, for life vests, for some vessels, some are not up to standard. Yes, we're talking about children's life vests. Now, on the 15th of April, we checked out all vessels to see if they meet the legal requirements. And we are going to get more such vests, and we're discussing with the trade from 5% of the vessel's capacity to be increased. So we are discussing this. Chair, the tragedy took place 1 year and 2 months ago. So almost 1 year and 2 months. And you are still telling us today that you are discussing with the trade. Now, how can this be acceptable by the public? Now, this Marine Department, you are really loaded with shortcomings. Can you give us a more proactive answer? Okay, well, 4 minutes gone. I think is now Mr. Chan's question. Now, it's been a long time since the tragedy, because the master of the vessel was not careful enough, and then for the inspection of the vessel, again, it was loaded with problems. Now, I'm asking the Secretary, now, the staff manpower, they are elderly in nature, but then their salary is low. And they are not really skilled in their job. Now, many of those on board are not properly trained in the marine safety aspects. And for the vessels plying in the harbor, again, because of the lack of supervision, improper inspection. Now, can anything be done to rectify problems existing within the vessels? Now, as has been said, you have a shortage of inspectors of these vessels. Now, can you improve the situation within this short span of time to ensure that the vessels are safe? And then, now, the existing operators, can they meet the higher requirements, and can they afford to meet those higher requirements? And what about the general question of passenger safety? Now, this collision incident does throw up questions that we did not address in the past. Now, after the incident, now from the government's angle, we want to ensure safety of all vessels, and so we did a comprehensive review. Some involved procedural overhaul. This has to do with shortage of manpower as well, and shortage not only within the department but also within the trade. And some of the staff tend to be pretty advanced in years, and their training is on the low side. So these are all very, very true. And of course, we have to review the legal requirements, but we also need to have the support of the trade. Otherwise, it will not be very useful. And again, all these may have an impact on the operating costs. And we, in the government, obviously focus on passenger safety. And if necessary, we are considering subsidy of some sort. Now, shortage of manpower in the Marine Department has been a long-standing problem, and all these take time. So are you helping them, subsidizing the operators, or allowing them to increase their fares? Well, this really depends on where the problem lies, and we want to focus on the issue at hand. Fernando Chung. Now, apart from the two masters of vessels who are responsible, but there's also the fact that the vessels sank within a short time of 2 minutes. And this is really making escape impossible. And it's related to the lack of supervision in the past and inspection of the vessels. Okay, now you are now doing reviews and checks and so on. And you are saying that if there are any problems with the criminal nature, they will be resorted to or referred to enforcement agencies. Now, for the victims' families, they would like to see what has been done to penalize those responsible. Is anything of a criminal nature? And yet, as of today, you are still tight-lipped about this. One victim's family, Mrs. Koo, she lost her son, and she wrote in a letter to Hong Kong that they loved Hong Kong and consider Hong Kong their home. They've been law-abiding citizens, thinking that Hong Kong has a very good leadership, rule of law, and compared favorably to many other advanced countries regarding safety of life and limb. But then the corrupt system can actually kill, and those offenders are not penalized. And the so-called regulations tend to protect those responsible. So they are criticizing the government as operating in the dark. Now, I have handled harassment in schools, and after the Education Department has done their investigation, they also made public those that have been referred to for law enforcement or enforcement agencies. Now, if you do have such references or referrals, how come that you cannot make those public? So you should make public that you have at least done this. Secretary or the director. Now, Chairman, now after the incident, the government set up an independent panel explaining the cause of the incident. Now, for criminal follow-up or civil servants disciplinary follow-up, whether they have been guilty of any offense, we will follow the procedures laid down. Now, for criminal nature offenses, you remember that on the 15th of October, the police, when responding to the press, said that they have started an overall and a fully comprehensive survey and involving criminal nature and whether those officials are public officers or not. And the police will also keep in touch with the DOJ. So the criminal investigation is being undertaken. Now, can Secretary tell us, has any disciplinary action been taken? Now, these actions have to be done or will be done after the internal investigation is completed. Next question. Now, Chair, now we have to understand the feelings of the victims' families, and surely they want to know what really happened. Now, based on past experience, many of these reports after incidents have have taken place only appeared very, very late. And after these reports are out, there would be a lot of litigation. And the final report will only be made public after all these litigation has been completed. Now, is this a usual practice by the Marine Department, or is this a general practice? Now, the Cheung Chau collision incidents, well, more than 2 years from now, the reports are not made public yet, maybe because they are again pending litigation. Now, with the same thing applied to the Lama incident. Secretary, please. Now, for the families, it is true that some have decided to go for civil litigation, and the Legal Aid Department has approved 14 cases of civil litigation, so they can raise this anytime they want. And the DOJ has arranged a lawyer to liaise with the victim's family. So they are free to proceed anytime they want. Now, but without the report, how can the victim's family raise litigation? Now, regarding the various reasons for the incident, the independent panel has already done something pretty comprehensive. But the Marine Department is looking at its own members, its own staff. Now, in June this year, the internal investigations already started. And any investigation has to start fact-finding all over again. And under the independent investigation rules, those who have given testimonies, and if there are criminal or civil procedures given in the independent panel, those information cannot be used again. So a further investigation will have to start from again, including those witnesses to come forward to give evidence. Now, in litigation, now for a lot of incidents, you would come across negligence. And without the report or evidence, how can anyone be shown to be negligent? How can the victim's family proceed?
So will the department review the practice and consider how or when you are going to make it public? I wonder whether you are going to keep it until the limitation period is over. Well, the investigation team will hand in the report to me in the first quarter next year, and I'll have to consider the next move after receiving the report. So a decision will be taken by you, Secretary, in the first quarter next year. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, I have 3 questions. You have an internal investigation looking into possible criminal offense committed by the incumbent or retired officers of the department, and you have to make referrals to the law enforcement agencies. Who makes the decision of referral? You? Is it you, Secretary, or some other people in the department? And at what rank are they engaged? And it seems that you have not been able to show people that you are working on something with the industry. And you have come up with some measures, but the last one will only take effect 1 year after Gazzetto. There are many ferries, but only the outlying service ferry are getting your money, your subsidy, $190 million a year. And we have been told that there are many accidents with outlying islands service ferries. And we were previously said that there would be an announcement at the end of this year. And now we are precisely at that juncture. When are we going to get more news? I'll talk about the investigation, internal investigation first. If we detect anything criminal in the investigation, as I've said, the matter will be referred to the law enforcement agencies concerned. There's no need for me to give approval for the referral to be made. And this is under the charge of the Permanent Secretary for Transport and Housing, Transport, and also there's a PEO leading the investigation team. They can do this if necessary, because this is my instruction to them. If they detect anything criminal, they can make a referral. As for measures to improve vessel safety or marine safety, yes, we have taken longer time than expected. In your September meeting, many deputations representing the industry came to talk about the difficulties that they were facing. We hope the measures can be implemented with the full cooperation with the industry so that they can be implemented without a hitch. As for the other forms of assistance that we can help the industry, I'll defer to the director. We have a fund on. We're going to have a fund on assisting victims of marine accidents. We have engaged a consultant to look into this. We're going to make reference to the Transport Department's similar arrangements to assist road traffic accident victims. And then we'll also review the overall implications for the industry and come up with a proposed arrangement. The study will be completed close to the end of the year. Are you going to ask the outlying islands ferry service to implement the improvement measures first? Well, we are now talking to the industry about the measures. And generally speaking, the outlying islands ferry service is already in compliance. As for those areas requiring catching up, we encourage them to expeditiously implement those. Mr. Yik Chi Ming, I'm a director of Staff Ferry. I have to declare my interest in my dealings with the Marine Department over the past 20 years. I won't say that the system was plugged with a lot of loopholes, but there is certainly room for improvement. Returning to today's subject, the Marine Department has been suffering from a lack of resources. This is nothing new. I knew it a long time ago. Returning to today's subject, I support the creation of the 3 directorate posts and the other post. But there's only senior surveyor in the team. And now the industry is facing a problem. We want you to carry out the inspection. And today the inspection is much more detailed and thorough. So there are repeated checks. And we have to wait for 7 to 10 days before the next inspection is arranged. And in the meantime, the license cannot be renewed. So I hope the Marine Department can increase frontline manpower. We know that there's a manpower shortage, both for the department and for the industry. There are short-term measures, and then they will take effect in a year's time. Of course, we cannot compromise on safety, but I have to remind everyone, when manpower is insufficient, enforcing these requirements will affect public service in the future. So we have to bear this in mind. As for medium term and longer term, you are going to have AIS, VHF, radio, which will be made mandatory according to the industry and local experts. These facilities will not have any real help for the local marine traffic in the harbor. If you really require them to do this, you know the ferries and kitos are already finding the operation environment very tough. And if you ask them to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to install these equipment, they may as well fold up the business. You have to find a way to help them. Otherwise, their business will no longer be viable. Secretary, as for whether AIS, VHF, radio, and other equipment will be essential or mandatory for marine safety's consideration. Of course, the professional judgment is for the director to make. And if the director is of the view that these should be made mandatory and the industry finds it difficult to cope, we'll find a way to offer assistance. But you have just 1 year for everything to be implemented. As for the timetable, I'll ask the director to respond. With regard to AIS, Automatic Identification System, we'll consider whether the equipment is going to be helpful in ensuring marine traffic safety. We have the view that certainly it is going to be helpful because a vessel equipped with AIS will be visible, so to speak, to the other vessels, and early action can be taken to avoid collision. But in terms of the timetable of installing this equipment, at the end of this year or early next year, i.e. in January, we will talk to the industry through the local vessels advisory committee and its subcommittees. And with the support of the industries, we can proceed to the necessary legislative work as soon as possible. After I draw a line, Mr. Christopher Chung and Mr. James Toh have joined us. I'll give you 2 minutes to raise your points and to ask questions. Mr. Christopher Chung? Well, I asked this question last time, but I was not given any concrete reply. I want to talk about children's life jacket. You know, the size is very different if it's for 4 or 5 years old or for 12 or 10 or 12 years old. So how are you going to deal with this? As for the storage space for life jackets, you know, in this incident, the vessel sank within minutes. So is storage arranged in such a way that they can be easily and quickly accessible? I think the life jackets should be placed under the seats so that the passengers can get hold of them immediately. They don't have to try to search for the life jackets. Secretary or director? Or deputy director? Thank you, Chairman. The member's question is the suitable age group for children's life jacket. It's based on weight, not on age. It's 14 kg to 42 kg, and in terms of height, 76 to 126 cm. Within that range, it will be suitable. As for the location of the life jacket, it depends on the design. The design is different from vessel to vessel. It would be best if the life jackets are placed under the seats. If this is not possible, there will be a storage box or cabinet, as long as there is a clear signage indicating where they are, it's acceptable to us. Mr. James Toh. I have a short question. I hope a short answer can be given. Has the police completed its criminal investigation yet, Secretary? As I understand it, it's still going on. Why is it that when you conduct an investigation into the act of the coxswain and the sailors could be completed so quickly, but not the one on Marine Department's people? I cannot answer this question. Would the investigations cover criminal act on the part of MD officers? As the police have said in responding to media questions, then that is the investigation is comprehensive and it will cover all sorts of criminal liability. So that's included. Has the 6-member panel referred to the police any case? I just want a yes or no answer. As I said earlier, I cannot give a formal reply because I do not want to affect the investigation work of the police. Why is it that this fact can affect the police investigation? If you say yes, the police will continue with his investigation. If you say no, they can still continue with the investigation. So in what way would the police investigation work be affected by an answer? Well, my answer is still the same. We don't want to affect the police investigation. Well, maybe it's because there's no referral and people will have doubts about the 6-member panel's work. There's no need for the public to be worried. The investigation teams has got instructions, and that is to say if they find out anything criminal, they can make a referral. The investigation team will look into matters such as mismanagement, direction of duty, misconduct on the part of civil servants.
Okay, so we wrap up the issue here. Now, you have answered many questions. Secretary, but then you have only given us replies of a pretty general nature, and that you are still thinking about this, or that we have to wait, and because it's more than a year now, and Hong Kong is famous for efficiency, and even for children's life vests, the answer given to us is that it's still being discussed. Now we will report again in February or March. Okay, so we'll fix a time then. Thank you. Now we move on to the next one, which is related to this one, which is staff or the manpower problem. Now, some of them are pretty elderly, the staff in the MD. So, do we have new members from the government joining us for this item? Okay. So who would start the briefing? Now, members, this has to do with the staffing proposal on taking forward marine-related legislative amendments and systemic reform of Marine Department to enhance maritime safety. And is it the director or the Undersecretary to take us forward? Okay, now thank you, Chairman. Now this has to do with the government's proposal to create 4 supernumerary directorate posts to take the lead in enhancing maritime safety and strengthening the internal governance of the department. And this will involve 3 supernumerary in the MD to follow up on the recommendation of the given to us to train our manpower and so on. And also we propose a deputy principal government counsel post in the law drafting division of the DOJ to head a legal team for giving support to the Transport and Housing Bureau and MD in taking forward marine-related legislative amendments. And the period is from February 2014 to the 31st of May 2016, 18 months. Now, the MD's post has to do with overhauling, reforming the MD and its systems, and they have been detailed in the previous session, and I'm not going to repeat them. Now, we are of the view that for this review to take place, certain posts have to be created in order to assist the director. So we are of the view that posts be created. AO staff grade B, that's D3, 1 senior principal executive officer, SPEO at D2 level, and 1 assistant director marine, AD of Marines, D2, to lead the various tasks that I outlined. Now, because it's going to be a complex issue and systemic reforms, checking of the laws and guidelines, looking at the overall structure, as well as the staffing problems, we feel that 3 directorate officers are needed, and that their leadership would be required in order to strengthen work and liaison and to do the work expeditiously. Now, for the legal side, it is important that the shipping issues covers the whole globe, and we need to have actual expertise in this area. Now, for Hong Kong, we have 6 primary legislation and over 85 subsidiary legislations, and to meet international standards. And these will grow and change over time, so we have to legislate to meet the latest international developments and needs. And because of these technical nature, and these are international requirements, they have to translate into domestic legislation, and this will entail substantial changes to the existing law in order to reflect the new requirements in a specific and detailed manner. And we also realize that there are new introductions in these areas, and we have to be able to meet those needs. Now, looking at our present situation, we will have to revise more than 30 such legislations. And because of that, we propose that a dedicated team be set up, and that we will need a deputy principal government counsel at DL2 level to oversee the work. And our aim is that by early 2016, we'll be able to submit the draft regulations to LegCo. And there will also be 5 lawyers to help with the work. And we hope to be able to expedite the legislation work. Now, apart from these posts, we will also set up a supernumerary post. And with your approval, we hope that by January we'll be able to seek the view of the manpower panel and then to the FC for the creation of these posts. Now, whether you're talking about the legal amendments or systemic reform of the Marine Departments, they are all very urgent, and the existing manpower is not enough to take on these additional work. Now, I hope to be able to finish the discussion at 11:40, and I believe you will have even more questions for the government. We have Mr. Fernando Cheung and 3 other members wanting to ask questions. Can I draw a line here? 4 minutes. Mr. Fernando Cheung, starting with you. We were just discussing that the incident took place more than a year ago, and the changes made very, very little, and not even children's life vests. And the internal investigation, we are not given an answer as to whether referral has been done. So definitely nobody will be disciplined. But now we have to let them create additional posts. So no punishment, but now you have additional posts for the MD as well as for the DOJ. So without any concrete action being given, the department wants to be complemented by having additional manpower. I find this difficult to swallow. Now, if you have done a lot of work already and you need more staff at the front line for inspection and so on, then we can accept this. But you are talking about 4 directorate posts, supernumerary in nature. And I really find it difficult to understand how come you can come to us and ask for more people. The incident is so serious in nature, and nobody was held responsible, and yet you are rewarding the MD, and you need additional manpower at the directorate level. But what is happening to the existing director? Is it because you're going to fire the director? Why is it that you have to find a whole team of people? So what are the existing people doing? You have not been doing your job over the years. It's because the management is not doing its work, and so those below are not doing their work. You are now asking a supernumerary team. So you have not done your job, and yet you are getting a reward. So I find this very ridiculous. So for me, it's very simple. I am against this. Thank you, Chair. Now, these supernumerary posts, we cannot see this as a compliment or reward for the department. We have a lot of work to undertake, especially after the independent investigation. It has pointed out systemic structural problems that have to be followed up. And the various directorate post officers already have their work to do. And that is why we are asking for supernumerary posts. And these work, the posts are for a definite period of time, and when finished, they will be gone. Now, for the frontline staff, both the department and the bureau constantly review their work, and the frontline staff, we will follow the usual procedure to apply for those posts because they're not directorate posts. Now, if it's a matter of doing something wrong and then you have to remedy by having more manpower. Now, if they have a problem in issuing licenses, or whenever they make a mistake, and whenever you need a remedy, then the people responsible do not have to be held responsible, and you have to introduce new people to do the work. That is ridiculous. Now, if you are trying to plug loopholes, then you can look at it in with a very general kind of way. But for number 9, because you have to make legislations, and that's why you need new posts for the DOJ, including maritime regulations, and you have to make amendments to over 30 sets of regulations, as well as 8 sets of new regulations. Now, why is it that in the 1970s, now how many of those have been introduced then but not included in your area? And if these have been done or followed, would the tragedy be avoided in the first place? Now, can I just answer and then ask my colleague to supplement? Now, the post for the DOJ has to do with how international regulations can be translated into the Hong Kong setting. They have to do with ocean-going vessels.
And very often, under these international conventions, as far as regulation of local vessels is concerned, it's left to the local authority. Of course, we'll make reference to the requirements in the international conventions. We do have laws to regulate vessel safety, and they are under constant review by the department. And since the vessels incident, we have the Commission of Inquiry investigation, and now we must see if there's any updating required. The member referred to some conventions made by the International Labour Organization. Well, there was a major updating exercise in 2006, and after that, the department have talked to unions representing seafarers, and that was a tripartite cooperation, including the involvement of the LAB. Which convention was entered into the earliest, and for which we haven't got local legislation? Mr. Mo, can you do you want to say something? I want to respond to a question raised by Mr. Zhang. But please don't use my time for that. Maybe I should speak later. Deputy Secretary, any international convention for which there's no local legislation? That's one. Is it about labor? Shall we have? It's a maritime labor convention. We need to have local legislation, and through the CPG we can inform the international organization concerned. Let me supplement. There's an international convention for pollution-free paint, which took effect in 2008. We are still drafting the legislation. The paint used for the hulk of vessels. So there's not a lot. So the supernumerary post will be on legislation regulating the traffic within the harbor, marine traffic within the harbor. Is that the case? Well, we want to make amendments in accordance with conventions, and also to enact local legislation in accordance with these conventions. If the conventions require the application of the requirements on local vessels, we also do so. Mr. Wong Kok Heng, well, I'm not a panel member, so I'm not able to participate in any voting. There's no need to vote on anything. I'm concerned about the Llama Island coalition. I think we should support the request to create the supernumerary posts. I think the system is full of loopholes. We must have a reform, and we should go for ultimate solutions and try to build a solid foundation for development. We are not trying to avoid the Marine Department, as Dr. Fernando Zhang has suggested. This Marine Department, is in such a poor shape. Well, if that can be done internally, there will be no need for the creation of the supernumerary post to take forward the reform. I think we should go for a thorough reform. We should go for a solution that will really solve the problems. Only by doing this will we ensure that no public money is wasted. The incumbent director is fully engaged on other duties. These problems have been building up over the years. We must go for the root cause and find solution. Now you are going to have the post for 28 months. Can you give us a pledge that after this form of reform, the Marine Department will turn a new leaf and you will be doing justice to the victims, the families? And can you give us an interim report to give an account and show that you have really done your job by getting the supernumerary post? Well, that's a very difficult promise to make, but anyway, let's see if they can try. Can you make a pledge? As we've said, the supernumerary post to be created in the MD will support the director's steering committee headed by the director himself, and the director has already indicated that he would come back regularly to report progress. So we are going to come back to report progress. So that's to be discharged by the director. Are you confident, even you can't say for sure 100%, that you can achieve something within the 28 months? Chairman, the department is pressing ahead with the necessary work. We are looking at the legislation, and we need to expedite things on a number of fronts at the same time. What about DOJ, Mr. Mo? As the representative of the DOJ, I would urge members to support the creation of posts, because we are going to deal with the application of International Maritime Organization conventions. Well, this is a timetable. Can you do it within the 20-odd months? If we get the necessary resources, we are confident that we can deal with the drafting of the necessary legislation. So he is confident. Let's give them a chance. It's not unlike what Mr. Yik Chi-ming has said, that is not full of loopholes. The system is full of loopholes, and we must try to cure the problem. Well, that's a question of different perspectives. They have been living with the problems for so long. Let me declare once again that I'm a director of Star Ferry. I've heard from Dr. Fernando Zhang that before the results are out, there's no reason to give them additional pay. I don't know what he means by outcome. And now they are trying to implement the recommendation of the experts. And we have been kept so busy. By result, does it mean that someone will be found to be liable and have to resign to take the blame? In the past, in accordance with my dealing with the Marine Department, I have known that they have insufficient manpower and resources, so I'm in support of giving manpower to the department to do the job, including manpower to be provided to the DOJ. And I think that in the 20-member group that you have, you don't have a lot of expertise, and you have problem with vessel inspection, and the industry is having their business held up. They don't have spare vessels. In the 20-member team, is there a room to provide more surveyors and inspectors? I hope the department will review this. In principle, I support the administration's proposals. So Mr. Frankie Yip is speaking from the perspective of the industry, and that is with additional manpower. Can you do the inspections more quickly and the licensing more quickly? And secondly, with more people in your department, can you rectify whatever needs to be rectified quickly? We are going to give you so many more people. Can you help the industry and smooth things up for the industry? We have applied for additional manpower. In terms of enforcement team, we look at the nature of work. We have already asked for more people, more resources. And the communication has been maintained for this purpose. Director, can you tell us how long would it take? I've been called. I've been received complaints, and that is a vessel in the case was kept for 10 days with no answer, no results. Can you increase your professional expertise? The directors will be working in the office. What about the surveyors of ships? We have applied for additional manpower. In the coming year, we are going to have a bigger establishment. But before the 1st of April next year, we'll try to deploy our manpower to minimize the impact on the public and the industry. Okay, thank you, members. So a number of members have offered their comments. Apart from Dr. Fernando Zhang, the other members are supportive. Is my understanding correct? Or Mr. Sin Chung Kai has reservations? All right, but this is just for the purpose of consultation here. The paper will be submitted to the ESC, and at the ESC meeting, there's no time limit. You can air your views freely. All right? So the majority are in support of the staffing proposal. So you can take it that you have the support of the majority of members, and you can therefore proceed to the ESC. Thank you for coming. Next item. Scheme of Control Agreements, SCAs, with the power companies, 2013 SCA midterm review. Hands up, please.
This is amazing. 表係嘛？寫表唔使讀嗰啲名。寫咁多。係各位請快啲坐，快啲坐。
Please be seated.
係局長，各位
Secretary and a representative from the two power companies, welcome to this meeting. We have only got 1 hour left. We have to wrap up by 1:45, and it's been widely reported a number of members would like to speak. At 7 members would like to speak. I need to manage time. So the Secretary will speak, and the two power companies too. Is that the way to understand it? Okay. Okay, to be fair, 4 minutes each. 4 minutes for the Secretary, 4 minutes each for the two companies, and 4 minutes each for members, including questions and answers. You first, Secretary. Good morning, members, Chairman. In accordance with the scheme of control agreements with the two power companies, any party to the SCA can, within 2013, ask for amendments to any part of the existing SCAs, but unless all the parties concerned enter into written agreements on amendments, otherwise no amendments will take effect.
So there are limits to the midterm review. And before we started the issue, we have discussed with various stakeholders, academics, and so on, and we have collected views, and as well as looking at the performance over the last few years, the government has proposed several points for the two power companies in order to enhance benefits to the consumers. And after a whole series of discussions, the proposals fall broadly into a few areas. And we believe that these are the major areas to be included that will benefit the end users. And of course, we definitely welcome the setting up of Energy Efficiency Fund so that shareholders' earnings can provide some sort of benefit for the end users. And this is a step forward, and we believe this meets to a certain extent the public expectation. And we are urging the two companies to expedite with the Energy Efficiency Fund. Now, there are other areas, for example, to promote reliability and operational efficiency, as well as customer services, and overall transparency, to better regulate the Tariff Stabilization Fund. And all these will benefit the end users. Now, for the midterm review, there are certain disagreements from the companies. For example, to lower the stabilization fund or the rate of return. And there are going to be more review to be done. And of course, we welcome members to ask questions and comments of the government as well as the two companies. Now, okay, we have CLP Power Company, and who would like to speak first? Okay, now thank you, Chair. Now, on the midterm review, we have conducted meaningful discussion with the government and considered the views of various stakeholders. We have done some preliminary discussion, and we strive to continue to be green and to comply with government policy. And these will become a focus of our work. Now, for the Energy Efficiency Fund, now these will follow what we have been doing in the past, and we are going to set aside $100 million, and $70 million will be set aside by the CLP on a matching basis to match energy-saving works by the users. Now, we are going to provide various subsidy schemes, for example, using LED light bulbs to replace the traditional ones. And these all go in the same direction. Now, within the agreement, we have included enhancing our service level to increase transparency as well as to reach economic benefits for the consumers. So this is all in line with our usual target. Now, we believe that the midterm review 2013 already meets our overall aim of continuous improvement. Now, this is an agreement signed with the government, and we stick to the agreement and do our utmost to fulfill our responsibility. We have a 10-year term, and we're going to have detailed arrangement as well as investment to meet the needs of the public, to provide safe and reliable and green power. Now, throughout this time, we have made substantial investment to meet the needs of society. And if you modify the major areas, this will have an impact, a big impact, as well as affect the quality service we are providing to Hong Kong. Now, for the moment, under the scheme of control, CLP is providing highly efficient, safe and clean and reasonably priced power. And we are going to follow our past practice for the last 112 years and continuously to provide quality service to our users. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Poon. Hong Kong Electric, please. Now, thank you, Chair. Now, in the past year, we have worked with the government to look at the 2013 midterm review, and we have been pragmatic and looking at the issue very carefully to see what improvements can be made. Now, we want to say that before we signed the agreement in 2008, there had been a lot of discussion in the public. For example, in 2005 and 2006, there has been a territory-wide review and absorbing the comments of society, and new ingredients have been injected into the agreement, and there are changes made to the system. Now, we are fully aware of the overall goal of the Hong Kong government, as well as its aim to improve services in all aspects. Now, we actually rank number 1 or Class A as far as energy efficiency is concerned. This means that the public is enjoying affordable power, and we are proud of that. Now, the Hong Kong Electric supply has been very reliable And since 1997, we have reached a high percentage of 99.9%. Now, the loss of power is less than 1 minute per household per year. And we have so many rewards given to us, and as well as performance pledges that we are fully capable of meeting. Now, for emissions, it has dropped by 40% to 88%, and we very stringently control our expenditure. Now, overall, power charges for 2005, it has been stable, increasing only by 0.2% over these years. Now, but in the last 5 years, inflation in Hong Kong is 13%, so our figure is a lot lower. Now, power charges in Hong Kong tend to be very competitive. In other major cities in the world, such as Tokyo, London, and Sydney, their residential power charges is higher than us by 100%. In Singapore, about 70% higher. And even nearby Macau, higher than us by 30%. Now, we understand that the public is very concerned about the poor and needy in Hong Kong. So we are going to address their needs specifically. And in fact, about half of our households use electricity less than 300 units per year. And compared to 2008, they will be paying less. For those getting CSSA, we have a reduction up to 60%. And with government subsidy, so as far as information we have at hand, more than 4,000 households all along have not the need to pay at all. Now, because the SCA has been working so well and meeting the needs of the government, we are of the view that nothing drastic or major should be done to change the SCA, because in doing so it would only affect the reliability. But we agree that within the overall framework there are improvements that we can work on. So we've accepted a few changes as outlined by the previous speaker. For example, energy saving efficiency. Now, in fact, we have got rewards given to us by overshooting the target, and we have been helping those in dilapidated households or single-story or independent buildings. Now, we will start our work immediately to help the small landlords to reduce their spending on electricity. Thank you. Mr. Albert Chan also raised his hand, so we have 8 members. So 4 minutes per member, please. Now, the interim review is not going to reduce 9.9% of the rate of return. This is only within expectation, but then members of the public will be disappointed. Now, because there is a possibility of a high increase of power charges, so the government must do something about this. Now, the setting up of the Energy Efficiency Fund and similar measures, they are only small measures and only, well, nominally helping the public. Now, if you look at the arrangement proposed, now in the coming 5 years, there is going to be 100 million. Now, but in fact, this is not an ideal amount, and the green groups therefore ask that all these energy efficiency fund and its earnings to provide more into the fund. And for the matching as well as the single residential block arrangement, now the 2 power companies have to consult more and to give electrical more power or more time to discuss this. Now, initially, I would like to know what plans there are at hand. I'm asking the 2 companies. So CLP first. Who would like to speak from CLP? Now, can I say something on the Energy Efficiency Fund and some of the details? Now, this is going to work on a matching basis to non-commercial buildings. In other words, with priority given to single residential blocks to improve the public areas and to save or to increase the energy saving target. And this will be shared by the fund as well as the landlords. Now, we have certain goals and targets, and the earnings will be channeled into the Energy Efficiency Fund. And by 2014, about 70 million will be injected into the fund. And if you look at our past records on our green measures, we reckon that in the coming 4 years, we are confident that we can inject this amount into the fund.
As for what kind of improvement that we can make to single residential blocks, well, many of them are still using ordinary light bulbs. If they can use LED bulbs instead, then the efficiency can be as high as 80% improvement. On an annual basis, the savings in tariffs can be 200 to 300 per light bulb. Please leave some time for Hong Kong Electric. Ms. Kwok mentioned that there will be tariff increase in the future. We are equally concerned about this prospect. In my speech, I already set out what happened in the past 5 years. Actually, there were 2 decreases in the past. Well, there was 1 increase, 1 decrease in the past 5 years. The total effect is an increase of 0.2%. At the same time, inflation was 13%. Therefore, we have done a lot to keep tariffs down. And I can also tell members that in the coming 5 years, we will continue to work hard to make sure that the increase will be acceptable. Lastly, Ms. Sit-Ho has joined us, and now we still have 8 members, so 4 minutes each member. The next one is Mr. Tang Ka-Pil. Well, in recent years, the power companies have been very successful in projecting this message, this image, that they are forced to increase tariff because you want to use natural gas, and natural gas is expensive, so we have no choice but to increase tariff. Last year, you were forced to increase tariff, and the Secretary for the Environment could do nothing. It's because of the rise in fuel costs. And now we have a surplus of $710 million in that account. We don't know how much pressure is brought by the use of natural gas, but the 2 power companies have been very successful in explaining that they are forced to do so because of the switch to natural gas. So I want to you to give us more information. We are going to use up to 40% of natural gas in 2015. What would that be if translated into tariff increase? And second, if it's because of fuel costs, can we generate less electricity? Some may think that this is not possible given our economic development, but we have a 30 to 50% reserve power. Why do we need so high a reserve? Well, they need the reserve because they sell to the mainland, but Hong Kong people don't need so high a reserve margin. And according to this extra capacity, the government can do nothing. You cannot really solve this problem for us, Secretary. So what are you going to do about the excess reserve margin or excess generation? And also by 2018, when the SCA come to an end, when are you going to announce the new SCAs? You need time to inform the public. And when are you going to make the announcements? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Tang, for the 3 questions. I'll ask my colleague to take the first two, and the third one is more important, and that is how we're going to respond to aspirations in the community that we should have an open market for electricity, and the SCAs are going to expire. If there are major changes by the end of 2015, we need to inform the power companies according to a timetable. Can you give us the month? You have a notification requirement in the SCAs, I suppose. Deputy Secretary? With regard to the first two questions, by 2015, we expect the tariff increase due to increase in fuel costs would be something that we need to work out. We are working with the two power companies on their 5-year development plan, and under that discussion, we look at the capital costs expenditure of the two power companies in the coming 5 years, and on top, we also look at their cost estimate for fuel in the coming 5 years. But before that is done, it's difficult to come up with any estimate to answer that question. Second question is if tariff has to go up due to various reasons, would reducing the consumption of electricity a feasible solution? The first question is whether our people can save energy and economize as far as possible, and secondly, whether the capacity of the generation can be kept to the minimum. We'll monitor the power generation of the companies closely in the coming 5 years. The question is, do we need to have a reserve of 30 to 50%? Well, I think in terms of reserve capacity on the part of the two power companies, I think when they commissioned the generators, that was sort of done and confirmed. At that point, we made some estimation and projection, and there are international standards that we need to go by. Normally, we need to have a reserve of capacity of 30%. I think members should comment on what we would like to have for the SCAs beyond 2018, and in particular, reserve capacity. Mr. Wong Kok Heng, I want to concentrate on the setting up of energy efficiency funds to help single residential blocks. Secretary, you seem to be very pleased about that. Please don't fall for it. The two power companies, of course, are singing praises for the EEF, but the subsidy is a nice package, but it's difficult to utilize. It's good looking. It's not good to use. And it may be beyond reach in reality, because single residential blocks don't have owners' corporations. Many of them don't have owners' corporations. They may have an MAC or owners' committee, which do not enjoy statutory powers. For example, look at these 6 streets of old buildings in To Kwa Wan. The Home Affairs Department helped them to set up OC only after a long time of coordination. So how can you expect them to switch to energy efficiency light bulbs with the help of the EEF, given the way they are organized? I hope this system can be simplified, and that is the two power companies can help these buildings direct, and then you calculate the tariff accordingly. So you do it directly, and then you can use the $100 million to help them, because otherwise these buildings are unable to submit applications. They are not organized, So I have 2 minutes left for the secretary and the two power companies. So you will want the two power companies to work as building renovators and equipment installation contractors. Well, we're going to engage NGOs, district organizations to help us achieve this. We know this is going to be difficult. Any energy conservation programs can be difficult, but we are confident that we can achieve the desired outcome. You haven't answered the question. They want you to be hands-on in helping them. Well, actually, the arrangement is being worked out. We would announce detail in early next year, but you can never act as contractors yourself. I fully agree with Mr. Wong Kok Heng that there are difficulties. We are not underestimating the difficulties involved. If we are going to help these buildings with no owners' corporations, it's going to be difficult. But we have accepted this arrangement. We must find a way out. We hope we can be given support by the members of the community. We'll work with the administration, green groups, and other organizations. I can say that this is a social problem. This is not a problem of power companies. I think Mr. Wong is being honest. I thank you for that. And we are practical people. The problem is real. Secretary, the two power companies, no need to provide detailed answers today. Please look into how the system is set out. Please be direct and straightforward. Switch to energy efficiency devices directly. Otherwise, people would complain that you have the fund of $100 million and they cannot utilize it. Yes, we hope that you will actually spend the fund. Don't make the application difficult. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, it's special this year that in paragraph from paragraph 6 to 14, the information on what is agreed is set out, but then there's some disagreement, point of dissent, and that is something that the government has failed to achieve, such as downward adjustment of rate of return, excess capacity, and efficient emission control facilities, and how to handle capital gained out of disposal of fixed asset, and so on and so forth. If you look at the differences, they are major matters. And what you can agree on are minor issues. Secretary, you have teeth, but you don't have a bike. Okay, now you have a midterm review, which involve minor modifications, and you are both happy. Your term would end in 2017. I don't know whether you can stay on until then, but for the next government, they will start from 2017, and the new SCA will start in 2018. So in the middle of the new term of government, I'm not saying that you achieved nothing under the midterm review. You have managed to get $100 million. Can you work out some new agreements before 2017? And that is a new agreement covering the new substantive matters: rate of return, excess capacity, emission control facilities, capital gain of out of disposal of fixed assets, and so on and so forth. Secretary, the SCAs will expire in 2018. As I've answered other members, if we are going to introduce major changes, we need to trigger a review before the end of 2015. We have to inform the two power companies. So the job for us will come in two ways. First, we'll look at a review, the fuel mix, which would affect the tariff, reliability of power in Hong Kong, and we have to talk to the power companies of any change that we would like to introduce. after 2018. And the next term of government will certainly have to look into this. We would be alive to public opinion so that we know how or whether we should make any major changes. I'm a bit concerned because it's a tug of war between you and the two power companies, and they can drag on until 2017 and say this is something for the new term of government. And when the new government assumes office, they have a lot to handle, and they don't have time for negotiation, and they will just sign new CSAs for another 15 years. So I'm asking you, can you do anything substantive before July 2017 on these major issues? Rate of return, excess capacity. I agree with what you have written down. How can we tighten up the provision of excess capacity? The question is, can you achieve those things before you step down? Well, we're not going to wait until 2017. The whole arrangement will be subject to a review. We'll look at the fuel mix, and we'll also look at possible changes to the SCA beyond 2018. And we'll discuss with the two power companies in 2014 and 2015, and we'll see what's coming very soon.
Okay. Now, the two companies are here to stay, but the government will change hands. So no matter what, this is going to be a not easy problem to solve, and we have another member coming here, and we have 6 members, so 24 minutes. Starting with you, Mr. Chen Kam Lam, 4 minutes, please. Now, we are very much concerned about the cost of electricity as well as the midterm review. Now, I've been paying attention to some reports. One is to do with the CLP using so-called cheap coal for generating electricity and selling it to the mainland. So it seems that CLP is cheating the public here. The cheap stuff is being sold to China, but Hong Kong people have to pay for the expensive electricity. Now, the question for the government is, how do you monitor the CLP's selling of power to the mainland? Now, another issue has to do with the natural gas, and we've been told that the supply from the South China Sea is depleting, and that we have to have resources from the West. Now, but we have also been told about the PetroChina discovering gas reserves, and it is possible that this new reserve can supply Hong Kong's needs. I would like to know more. Now, is the report true that CLP has not really done its utmost to get cheaper natural gas for Hong Kong? And what is the latest update? I would like to know more. So CLP first, and then the Secretary, whether power can be sold to,
Just like to explain our supply of natural gas to Hong Kong. We signed a contract with China National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOOC, in 1992 for a 20-year supply of gas that would supply our needs for 20 years from the first deliveries of gas in 1996. Now, within 5 years of that supply starting, as a normal procedure in a gas supply arrangement, the seller redetermined the amount of gas in the field and found that there was less gas than was originally thought. So within 5 years, we had already needed to reduce the amount of gas that we were needing to use in order to stretch out our gas supply. and immediately we started steps to introduce new supplies of gas. So from 2001 through until 2008, we explored a number of possible supplies of gas, including further supplies from the mainland, and even developing a liquefied natural gas terminal in Hong Kong. In 2008, the Hong Kong government and the central government on the mainland signed a memorandum of understanding on energy cooperation, which enabled some new supplies of gas to be delivered from the mainland. One of those supplies was the west to east pipeline gas from PetroChina, and we immediately started negotiations with PetroChina, and that supply of gas started deliveries this year. We also have worked with our existing supplier, CNOOC, who were the subject of the report, bearing in mind that they have been our only supplier of gas since 1996, and we were trying to introduce some competition into our gas supplies with PetroChina. We were trying to have a balance of our gas so that some would come from PetroChina and some would come from CNOOC. We are still in discussions with CNOOC, and we are exploring new supplies of gas. But these supplies are a long-term arrangement. They do take time to put in place the commercial arrangements as well as the regulatory approvals that are necessary, and it will be some years before CNOOC's new supplies of gas would be available to us. I'd also like to mention that last year in 2012 we did introduce a small supply from CNOOC as an interim bridge for 5 years that would take us through to 2017, and that has helped us reduce the amount of the more expensive west to east pipeline gas that we have been using.
好 ，OK， 多謝夠啦。咁就局長你答我都唔知，做咗咁多年議員啦，中電係可以買。
Now I wasn't aware that power can be sold or to buy power. Now, we are bound by the agreement signed. It is a supplementary SCA, and CLP can only sold its excess capacity to China, and Hong Kong people would enjoy priority should there be any possible shortage. So the selling of power to China, the 80% of the income should be reimbursed or benefit Hong Kong users. And because of this, it will help to reduce the amount of increase in fees. And the arrangement is such that the end users will not suffer, only the shareholders may suffer. Now, in cancelling the pegging system, now because of the air quality memorandum, now CLP is of the view that the cancellation is acceptable, but the HEC is not of the same view. Now, so I'd like to know more about this emission performance linkage mechanism. Now, my second question has to do with Mr. Wong. Now, in the last term, when we were talking about fuel mix, about 50% nuclear, 40% from gas, and then 10% from other sources. But because of the incident happened in Japan 2 years ago, so it is now time to know more about the time frame for the review. Now, CLP also expressed its vision to include the infrastructure as well as a regional arrangement for these infrastructure. So this is a vision on the part of the CLP. Now, but what about the government? Can you tell us some overall direction on these issues? Now, the first point, the company or the two companies and the agreement with the government, the two agreements are not identical. So there are individual clauses in the two agreements, and we find that acceptable. Now, your second and third points are related. Now, our future mix or fuel mix review. Now, we are going to have a territory-wide consultation very soon. Now, we are trying to offer alternatives for Hong Kong to choose. So on the one hand, we want to maintain safe and reliable and reasonably priced as well as green supply. And we want to strike a balance between all these. And of course, the choice is not simple. There are pros and cons for each variety. Now, and we can be using traditional methods as well as sourcing supplies from across the border. So we are going to consider all possibilities. We are going to look at the issue objectively and to give society a chance to discuss. Because this is going to be a long-term thing for the whole of Hong Kong. So this is how I would respond to your question. So we're going to outline different plans and scenarios with objective analysis for the public to decide. Now, I also would like to express support for the Energy Efficiency Fund. Now, but it's not just in monetary terms and not just for the single residential buildings, but even the OCs would have to know how to do the work. Mr. Cheung, now for this midterm review, I don't think the government is doing its work as gatekeeper. And you have allowed the two companies to reap a lot of profits. You have only introduced small measures to benefit the end users. Now, this Energy Efficiency Fund is not channeled directly to the users, but only will benefit the public indirectly. Now, the stabilization fund is not really helping very much. The CLP is 12 million, the Hong Kong Electric is a minus 500 million. Now, we are going to have to open up the supply net, and the fixed assets will be taken into calculation for allowing the two companies to make profits. Now, what is slightly better this time is that we have more transparency. So the consensus and the lack of consensus are shown to us. Now, this must continue. Now, for the excess generating capacity, now this is pretty ridiculous. Now, the permitted rate of return is based on the assets. And so the two companies increase its assets, increase its capacities to such an extent that we can actually sell to China. And you didn't know about this. And only 80% can come back to Hong Kong, but then the 20% will be pocketed by themselves. But then the additional assets used is allowed to be used into the formula for calculating the rate of return. So if they have additional $9 billion, then they can generate an additional 900 million. So how come that these profits are not channeled back to Hong Kong 100%? And these excess capacity and its assets should be taken out of the formula. Why can this not be done? Mr. Wong, why 80%? And what about the excess capacity? Now, Chairman, in regulating the selling of power to China, we only allow the CLP to use its excess capacity. Well, but it's for contingency in Hong Kong. No, but is when the machines and everything are running smoothly, the excess capacity is not doing anything. And if there is demand in China, then it is only using our capacity better. So not to waste it, in other words. But why only 80% channel back to Hong Kong?
Well, as I've said, the CLP is not increasing its capacity because of the supply to the mainland. Why 80%? Well, it was under the agreement with the CLP. But it can be changed. Oh, okay, if you want to change it, you can do it after 2018. Well, I don't have any supplement. Okay, we can't change it now. That is the point. Mr. Albert Chan. Well, the agreements are not fair and reasonable, and the midterm review cannot change that. It remains unreasonable and unfair. The rate of return, the guaranteed rate of return of 9.99% means the consumer, the end user, are at their mercy, well, whether they are happy or angry about it. So that's the fact. Of course, under the midterm review, we get some minor improvement, some gestures. The two power companies would do something, a little bit, well, to try to make the consumer a bit happier. But the basic situation has not been changed. Will the government introduce major changes instead of introducing piecemeal improvements? We know what has happened ever since we talk about natural gas 20 years ago. We were given a very good picture saying that we can switch to natural gas, tariff will go down as a result. But natural gas is getting more and more expensive, especially for CLP area. The tariff will increase in the coming years. We haven't seen the worst. After 2015, those people who use CLP service, CLP power in the NT, in Kowloon, would have a very difficult time. Will the government comprehensively reform the power market? Piecemeal solutions are no good. Even if you can change the rate of return from 9.99 to 8.99, you don't change the full picture. It was a 13.5%, subsequently adjusted downwards to 9.99%. But in terms of profits, the two power companies have never earned less. So I want to see if the administration would like to introduce comprehensive changes. And the government is rich. It has $3 trillion in reserve, in surplus. Can you not buy the power company so that power supply will be just like water supply, and it's done through a public system? Of course, if fuel cost rises, we need to pay more. But Hong Kong people would not like to pay more in order to increase the profit of the power companies. So are you going to consider changing the systems and the relationship with two power companies? And are you going to consider renewable energy? Secretary. Well, the member has referred to some sentiments in the community. Not that I don't disagree with them. I want to say is that we are making preparations. We are going to review the fuel mix, and in that context, we will look at the percentage of taken up by renewable energy. And we also explore how we can achieve the goal of opening up the power market. And so we would move forward towards that goal. Are you going to buy the two power companies? Albert, on the 10th of December at 4:30, we are going to have another meeting. We'll be looking at the at things such as the rate of return. Maybe we can reserve our questions for that meeting. So will the administration buy the two power companies? Well, to scare them, if not for anything else. I think we are moving exactly towards the other direction. Instead of having a government control market, we are going to open up the market. Well, I think they are not going to buy the power companies. Mr. Ho, thank you for allowing me to put questions. The two power companies have been trying to pit environmental protection against a tariff. And they also trying to reap bigger profit through environmental protection. The way they calculate the asset is a big problem. In the paper, we are told that the two power companies want to increase the calculation of assets by including emission reduction assets. If you insist that they must be part of assets. And we have the incentive, which is not part of the system. And they are not agreeable to the removal of the emissions performance linkage mechanism. Pollution is not a right, Chairman. You should not say that to achieve emission reduction, you must calculate the assets. Well, emissions cause problem. So the two power companies do have a responsibility to introduce emission reduction measures in your operation. I have one further question. What is translated into tariff if we include or exclude the equipment for emission reduction as assets? We are consumers. We need how the cost is calculated. Can the administration tell us that in the current emission control measures, how much does that cost us? How much would it cost us in the new arrangement? And I want Hong Kong Electric to explain why you insist that such assets must be fixed assets, and at the same time, you want to have the incentive or under the EPL mechanism. Deputy Secretary? As for emission reduction or controlled assets, I think it should be answered by the two power companies. Is it that the two power companies won't let you tell us? Perhaps you can put a question to the two power companies? Mr. Poon or Mr. Wong? We have no supplement. Okay, you play safe, no supplement. Chairman, thank you, Ms. Ho, for your questions. As I said earlier, in the past years, we have achieved something in environmental protection. We have achieved emission reductions ranging from 40% to 88% in terms of certain pollutants. And we have explained why the assets related to emission control or reduction should be part of the overall fixed asset. First of all, under the agreement, when the agreement was reached, that was part of the consideration, because the generators we install, those coal-fired generators were installed before 1997. At that time, there were emission standards. The standards have been tightened up over the years, and when we discussed with Guangdong on how to control regional emissions, and therefore we are facing more and more stringent requirements. The original assets were unable. Well, the question is, why do you still require a 9.99% return? Shouldn't a lower return rate be required? Well, I think I have misunderstood the question. Well, Chairman, I was actually talking about the incentives, 0.1 and 0.4 pegged to emissions. On the one hand, you insist that the assets should be included in the fixed assets. On the other, you want to have the incentive. So you want the best of both worlds. First of all, if you want to reduce emission, you need to do something about both the software and the hardware. You need to have the asset. And for the asset to achieve the effect of emission reduction, and if you exceed, you can achieve the target and you can exceed the target. Well, if there's no incentive, you are not going to achieve anything over the preset target. Well, our duty is to achieve the target. It's our duty to do that. Well, actually, if we are penalized, we are going to get 4 times as high a penalty than the incentive. We cannot achieve the target just by having the necessary hardware. So apart from acquiring the necessary equipment to achieve emission reduction, and if we somehow can outperform the target, then we get the incentive. We are saying that this is this system of penalty and reward is a very powerful tool to monitor and to encourage our performance, because the penalty is 4 times as high as the incentive. And if that's the system, it would just make us even more determined to achieve the targets. I think maybe the member would like to discuss how the standards of performance should be set. Mr. Michael Tin, I think one of the controversial issues arising from the midterm review is the adjustment to the rates of return. The power companies do not agree that if any adjustment is above the prevailing inflation, then the approval of the X-code should be allowed. They don't agree. But but there's a cap. And when the CPI drops, you can make it up. I'm talking about the MTRC, and they can do it. I think all public utilities should adopt the same criterion, and that is people just trust them. If fuel cost goes up, you have to accept tariff increase, but you have to look at affordability. So I think we should allow them to make up for the shortfall if the CPI drops, and cap it as CPI. This is just reasonable. MTRC is so generous, although it's owned by the government. It's very reasonable. Why don't you agree to a cap so that you can catch up in the future? I don't think your fuel cost increase will always exceed that of CPI. This is a cycle. And also for the government, I have this question. In 2018, in the review for 2018, would you insist putting this in? It's easy for the public to accept if you give them such a general arrangement, because different sectors have different schemes of control, and people find it very difficult to understand. It's so complex. Can I get a response from the two power companies? Hong Kong Electric first? Or CLP first? Or if both don't want to answer, perhaps the secretary? Maybe they will not volunteer to do this. Well, it's just a kind of IOU. They will make up the shortfall in due course. Thank you for your question, Mr. Tin.
Now, the pegging of the power charges with inflation, right? So that's how I understand your question. Now, in what I said earlier, we reduced our prices 2 years out of the last 5, and that is the figure for the last 5 years. And on the whole, we increased only 0.2% versus 13% overall inflation. So we have been doing a very, very good job controlling the costs. Now, so you have more reason to support it. Yes. Now, there is also something called a fuel surcharge. Now, you have the basic charge and then the surcharge. Now, but our question is that this is time-based. So this is what I'm saying. It's time-based as far as affordability is concerned. So can Mr. Wong respond? I'm sorry, Michael. Now we have exceeded the time and we have to adjourn the meeting. But can Mr. Wong answer? No, but you are not even a member, so I don't think you are a member. Our meeting has to stop at 12:45. So I'll ask Mr. Wong to answer your question in writing. Thank you for your attendance. So 4:30, 10th of December. So starting at 4:30 p.m. So Michael, you are most welcome to come along.